Social housing is the public option. So what's the public option? We have public education. There is a private option, but it's not the dominant option, but it is available. Vienna has a private option also, but the vast majority of what they do is the public option, just like our public education system. If our house catches fire, we don't call up a private entity to come put that fire out. We call up a public service. It's the public option, our fire department. There's many public options in California, in the United States, and social housing would be the public option for housing. Typically, it is rental housing provided below market rate. Rents are charged according to either real cost based. That means like, how much does it actually cost to build it? How much will it cost to maintain it? What are the real costs? And then rent is set around those real costs. Or it's income based. There's an income based formula. How much can people, according to their income and their household expenses, actually be able to afford? Not some hypothetical, but actuals. Social housing is permanently off the private market. That doesn't mean that a private market doesn't exist. It means that this housing can never make its way onto the private market. So it's permanently off the private market. In some cases, it can be owned and operated by municipal governments. It can be owned and operated by nonprofit housing providers. In other cases, as with the limited equity cooperatives, land trusts, mutual housing associations, residents, the folks who are living in the social housing, they may be able to acquire a stake in their housing. But it's capped. There's restrictions on how much equity can be gained. And so it says there, they cannot sell them for exorbitant profits. There can be profit, but there's going to be a cap on how much profit. Models for social housing exist in several other countries. Vienna is one, and it serves as a basis for redesigning, remaking our housing. Vienna can and it is serving as a roadmap, a blueprint in some ways to help us on our journey. So that's a lot, right? That is a really dense, even with the pops of color, like that's some dense information. So let's break it down. Go ahead and go to the next one, Blanca, please. All right. So when you are thinking about housing, when you're voting, if you are a person who has is in a position, you work in affordable housing or in city government, or you have some ability to influence and have a say, right? Because of your job or your position or your profession. Think about these things. Use this as the guide when you are making decisions, when you are assessing, evaluating what will be built and how will it be built, and how will we allocate money. Now, you may not work in housing in any capacity, but we all get to have a say so. We get to call up city council. We get to email. We can show up in person. We can request. Jim, I'm looking at you, Jim, because Jim is a G. Like, this is what Jim does. And if anybody in here has never reached out to city council or the board of supervisors or the mayor, and you want to have a conversation because you like what you hear right tonight, and so your voice can have an impact, and get with Jim. Drop your contact information, because we have to mentor one another, support one another, encourage one another. If you've never done it, there's plenty of people in this space that can support you in having your voice heard. So something to consider. We may agree on some of these, or may not agree on all of them. That's okay. But we'll have a shared understanding about what it is that Faith in the Valley and LA Housing Movement Lab, and they are a part of the Housing Now. We all are a part of Housing Now. This is what we mean. And the working group, the California Social Housing Working Group, who's been working on social housing, y'all, actively since 2018. This is the definition. This is the hard, deep work that they did to help create this definition for all of us. So we're talking about social ownership. We're talking about public or community owned. You can't take one or the other. This is what we mean when we talk about social housing. You can't say, I like that piece, but I don't know about that permanently affordable. Social housing, this model, what Vienna has, social housing is permanently affordable. Housing that fits our affordability. Tenants have incredible security and protections and services. Residents, they have a say-so. If you live in an apartment complex, an apartment community, a mobile home park, then you want to have a say-so. You don't want to be like the folks over at the Trails End mobile home park right now, whose park was just bought by a corporate landlord, an corporate acquisition firm who's imposing rules onto the people who've been living there for decades. Things like you can't have wind chimes, you can't have plants, you can't have a washer and dryer, no laundry? No laundry? That's not what this is, right? This is residents having a say, playing a direct role in the management. Doesn't mean that there's no rules. Of course there's rules, but the residents get to have a say-so in what the rules are. It's permanently decommodified. And so what that means is that a commodity is something that we buy and we can buy, we can sell for a profit. That's what housing is here in California. It's a commodity, something that we buy, and then we're gonna, for the speculators, the folks that are buying housing for a profit, they're buying it so that they can sell it pretty quickly and earn a profit. And so this social housing, this definition of social housing says it is permanently decommodified. It's permanently off of the private market. And that there's community control, that housing is developed by and for the community. We're the community, y'all. We are. And in Vienna, the community has a really big say in what do they need, what kind of housing, what do they need within their housing community, what kind of amenities and services, and that's what we're saying here, that we, the community, should have a say-so. One more way to just break it down. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So these are the guiding principles. These four are the key principles. Remember I said Faith in the Valley, we were doing incredible work, very proud of it, but we didn't have that North Star, those guiding principles. Well, these are some guiding principles. Maybe you're a person in this space that cares about land and housing justice and has been doing deep work. And you're like, oh, this aligns with what I believe and what I want. And I didn't have these guiding principles. Look no further. Here they are, right here for you. Democratic control, it's universal. So we are talking about housing for everyone, for all income levels. Housing that does not segregate people along class lines, does not segregate people along racial or ethnic lines. We're talking about truly, truly affordable, deeply, permanently affordable housing. And, you know, here in California, here in the United States, when we have in the past made investments into permanently affordable housing, right, public housing, we didn't continue to make investments so that housing would, one, be built so that it's high quality, and two, it would be continuously invested in and maintained in a standard of high quality. Okay. So we're not talking like, okay, we're going to build some housing and it's going to be deeply and permanently affordable, but it's going to be, cheap, and it's going to fall apart and it's going to crumble and it might not be safe and it might not last. In Vienna, they are building high quality, beautiful social housing.